Hello folks, and welcome to Linux for Seniors. This is my second project in the last 4 years. My previous channel used to have about, I think, somewhere in the vicinity of 450 plus videos. So in my new project, Linux for Seniors, I'm going to slow down a little bit to take my time to explain things. You know, there are plenty of videos out there that are roughly 2 minutes that if you're watching whatever subject matter, a lot of times leaves you scratching your head going, what did this person try to do by speed reading? Because I've watched quite a few videos in the past where people try to cram information in 2 minutes, and really that's, at least for Linux subjects, that's just not enough time. So I do encourage that you subscribe. There's multiple benefits for that. First of all, you can come back tomorrow, the next day, to watch the remainder of this video if you hit stop. You have also access to my other library that is building. And I'm going to be producing quite a few videos for a lot of different Linux distributions. I've been around computers for 25, 30 years. I've been around Linux for about the same, 25 years plus. And learned a lot of things on the way. I use a lot of Linux distributions also. And more importantly, what I'm going to talk about today, folks, is the file manager. So before I get cracking on this, let me quickly give you system information. So I'm going to use this in a different way than most people do. I'm going to use the word Neofetch. So Neofetch is a command you normally have to install if you want to actually view this, but this is Pop! OS 2204 LTS, long-term support. This is a GNOME desktop 42.5, and I know you can see the hardware information. And no, you don't need all this horsepower. I do other work on this computer. That's why I have all this stuff on there. And you'll see additional hard drives in a minute. But more importantly, I'm going to talk about the file manager for Pop! OS. I'm going to show you probably some tips and tricks you have not seen elsewhere. Maybe you have. So let me first go through the top menu and let's see what we're looking at. New Windows. That's if you're transferring files or folders from one device to another, or internal folder to internal folder. So I'll talk about that a little bit. And then tabs and create folder. Show you hidden files if you're curious, because there are hidden files in here. Talk a little bit about preferences and keyboard shortcuts. You can also click help. So files, if you click on that website thing, it will tell you this is Nautilus. Not all of these interfaces on other Linux distros, they say files on them behave exactly the same. They're slightly different in settings. What is over here? Well, that's if you wanted to change the icon size. And I'm going to show you a shortcut using your hands and your keyboard and mice to resize icons. So I think you'll find that method quite easy to use. But I could click plus or minus to resize these icons. Anyways, we can sort this through A through Z, Z through A, last modified, first modified, size, type, and reload. If you don't like the way the icons are displayed, you can, of course, do this. Now, Linux calls these folders directories, just an FYI, but I'm going to try to use the word folder moving forward. So your personal files or folders are located here. There's also system files, but I'm really not going to cover that much in this video. I will show you some hidden files and not try to overload you with information. So we have a search feature. We have a drop down. So the tabs over here, you can also select a tab, and I have a USB stick already inserted, and you can switch between the two and your home folders. And you can transfer files back and forth. I'm really not going to cover that too deeply here. So let's talk about settings first. I'm going to go to the hamburger menu, as some people call it, preferences. Third item, action to open items. Items is a folder or a file. If you change this from double click to single, I'm just going to caution you that the shortcuts I'm going to show you is done with the default double click. Most, if not all, of my Linux distributions have that setting. And the Pop! OS installs this file manager with this setting turned on, FYI. Okay, that's really all I'm going to talk about in the settings. Yes, you can do other things in here, but I'm going to close this. So with that said, I'm going to resize these icons starting right off the bat. Now, this may be kind of funny to most people, but I am right-handed, and I have a mouse in my hand that has a scroll wheel on it. Most modern computer mice have a scroll wheel, which I'm going to use to my benefit, not only to, when I'm in a web browser, scroll up and down on the pages or even the file manager, but I'm going to use it to resize icons. And you're going, huh? I'm going to take my left hand and I'm going to depress the control key on my keyboard and hold it there while scrolling on my computer mouse to resize these. So once I get it to a comfortable size, I let go of the control key and they remain in that size. If you feel more comfortable by clicking, so be it. Okay? So I'm going to click in here again and do that again. Where does this come in handy? Let me go to my pictures folder, and I have two wallpaper folders. One is called wallpaper and the other one's wallpapers. Let me open this. So you can see all the thumbnails that are in here. So I am going to hold down the control key on my keyboard and scroll up and down on my computer mouse to make these larger, or kind of in between and back to small. Now, if I didn't do that, I would have to go back in here and hit plus or minus, or even 100%. So I'm going to get it to the size I want. All right, a couple of things of note. If you don't like the current wallpaper, so right now I'm using the Pop! OS wallpaper, as you can see. And let's say you have pictures of your children, your pets, your friends, or you downloaded some wallpaper off the internet, place them in a folder. Doesn't matter if they're in pictures or wallpaper or any other folder. What you can do is I'm going to take my strange one here, right click, and set as wallpaper. I already have this wallpaper in my normal folder, so I'm going to hit replace. So if you clicked on a new photo you haven't used yet as wallpaper, then it wouldn't ask for that. But more importantly, you probably agree that's a weird looking wallpaper. Good attention getter, as one would say. So with that said, you can also use your own photos. Now I have a photo here that I'm going to right click and hit set as wallpaper, and that becomes my new wallpaper. That's just the ocean. No big deal. However, if you're using your own photos, I also wanted to point out the fact that this file manager also can pull in other information regarding your photos. Your digital photos you brought off your smartphone, or maybe you downloaded it off the internet. If you right click on it and hit properties, click the image, and it'll tell you what kind of phone this or camera this was used. I used an iPhone 12 on this one. I'll find a really old photo, and let's find this one here. I'm not even sure what this is. Oh, okay. In either case, this was taken many years ago with an iPhone 6 in 2017. I'm going to show it to you in a different way. Right click, properties, image, and now it breaks it down by different categories. Apple iPhone 6 Plus and all the other particulars. It even gives me coordinates where it was taken. Not all photos do this, by the way, but I wanted to let you see that it pulls in quite a few pieces of information with some photos. Now I'll close that. So again, you can set these wallpapers or photographs rather easily. So if these are pictures of your children, your pets, or your friends, or wallpapers downloaded off the internet, you can do this rather easily. Okay. So that is essentially photos in a nutshell. For resizing your thumbnails, again, hold the control key on your keyboard and scroll up and down. Once you got them into the size thumbnail you like, release the control key and this will scroll normally. If you want to grab a hold of that bar on the side, you are certainly welcome to do that. Okay, I'm trying to grab a hold of it. It's a little bit more difficult, isn't it? I rather just use my scroll wheel on my computer mouse. But that's all up to you. Double clicking on an image brings this up, and then you can resize it from there. This, by the way, if you're curious, let me open up Image Viewer one more time and click the hamburger menu. If you have other applications installed or programs through your software store, then you can also open with other applications, in other words. All right, so that's photos in a nutshell. Let's talk about documents. So Or do I want to talk about hidden files and folders first? Let me get this out of the way. You don't need to know this, but every Linux distribution has hidden files normally in your home folder. Your home folder is your personal folders. Your home folder, by the way, there's another folder in your root directory for Linux that contains possibly other home folder users. But these are your personal folders, in other words. But there's always hidden files in here and folders. So how do I display them? Well, there's two ways. You can click in here and you can click on Show Hidden Files, or you can use a keyboard shortcut, Control H. I'm going to hit Control H again to close that. One more time, hamburger menu, keyboard shortcuts, page 3. Control and H, Show Hidden Files. Okay, I'll get into using Control X, C, and V, and A, which is also the same equivalent in your Microsoft systems. Control X is cut, Control C is copy, Control V is paste, Control A is select all. You can do this with a lot of different things, including word processors when you're cutting and pasting sentences even, or documents and folders. So I'm going to use Control H to view my hidden files and folders. Again, Linux calls these folders directories also. But this has a .local folder. That means it's a hidden folder. And there's sometimes subfolders in there. But more importantly, there's also hidden files. It starts with a dot. Bash stands for Born Again Shell, and that is the shell for this terminal box. And you saw me use Neofetch. So if I type in the word history, these are all the commands that I performed since starting this up or last clearing this out. So I installed a couple of things. I installed Neofetch, which I showed you the system information. I installed Simple Screen Recorder using this command, which is what I'm using to record this video. And I also installed another one called ncal, which is a calendar thing. I'll show that in a second. But this is the history for it. The commands for this is in numbers. So the last command I perform is history 17. Let me open this back up and perform a couple of fun commands. A lot of people shy away from this box when they're brand new to Linux. Let me try to get you comfortable with this. Okay, so there's a calendar up here, right? We all know that. But I'm going to perform another command that you normally have to install ncal to do this with on this distribution. It gives me a simple calendar. However, this is a very powerful calendar command inside of your terminal box. It can do some fun things. I'm going to use the upper arrow key on my keyboard to repeat the last command, or you can just retype it. Then I'm going to hit the space bar, and I'm going to put the word JUL for July and hit the space bar and put 1776 for a year. For you folks born in the United States, July 4th, 1776 is Independence Day. But what day of the week did that fall? A little trivia there. Sure, you can go to the internet and look this up rather quickly, but your terminal can do this in about a second. It fell in on a Thursday. Now you want to have some fun with your friends and family. I'm going to repeat the same statement by hitting the upper arrow key. Then I'm going to erase this. And then I'm going to put in cal space, and I'm going to put I can either put JAN for January or just the number 1 for January. Then I'm going to put in a year. I'll make up something like 2003, for instance. If you have a friend born in January of 2003, hit enter. That's the calendar from January 2003. And your friend was born on the 8th. They were born on a Wednesday. Have some fun with your friends and family. Now, I'm going to hit exit. This is just one simple command you can do with terminal. Now I'm going to take a look at my bash history again. And you will see those extra commands I just performed are in here. Now, if you are wanting to play with the calendar program, may I suggest that you install this. I'm going to punch up history. If I can spell it right. And what you want to do is install that. If you punch in the word cal, it'll suggest that you install sudo, which is super user do apt space install is just the command, and ncal is the name of the application for calendar. Let's move on. All right, so the rest of these are folders, right? So I'm going to hit Control H, or I can walk over to here and select, unselect, show hidden. So these are hidden files. All right, as I pointed out earlier, we can transfer files. So I'm going to do two things at once here. I'm going to reduce this window because I want two of these over here on this desktop. Are you tired of looking at the mushroom? Let's change the background to something from the system. I'll just pick the Pop OS to make it dark. So what I'm going to do here is click the hamburger menu and click this window thing. It makes two boxes. They can be any size you want. You can resize this to your heart's content. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to click up my backup drive, which is a USB stick. And I also have other hard drives in here. But let me make it simple. This is a USB stick with files already in them. This over here is my home folder, which I can click downloads or documents or whatever in here, or I can click the shortcuts. So I have roughly the same type of files in here. So I'm going to get rid of a couple of things. I'm going to get rid of that one. And I have this one in here also, so I'm going to get rid of that one. And this dartboard thing I'm going to get rid of. So a couple of things in here. Of note, you probably can see this. I have a test123 compressed file, so let me get rid of that one also. And I'll leave this one. Actually, I'm going to delete that one because I'm going to actually do another compression for you. So I'm going to do multiple things all here showing two windows. And by the way, you're probably staring at this file going, what is wrong with that? It's a file, but it says A on it. That's perfectly explainable for a folder, but not a file, right? Actually, in Linux, this is a valid file. This is actually a text file. It's a recipe my wife got many years ago that I copied into a text editor. Text editors don't have spell checkers, by the way. Text editors are also used to create script files. I create script files too to do certain functions in different Linux systems too. But more importantly, if you are going to move this file into a Microsoft Windows or Mac system, then please rename that to something more pertinent, like a.txt, for instance. That's all I'm going to say about that one. Now, I want a couple of these files from my document folder in my home folder, hard drive, into this USB stick. How do I do that? Click, drag, and drop. It's that simple. What if you want a folder? Well, I have this T folder. I'm not even sure what's in there. Let's see how big it is. It's 15 megabytes. It's no big deal. It should fit on this USB stick. And it copied the folder and the contents in the folder, which happen to be two files. As a matter of fact, it has a compressed file in there. So let's talk about compressing files for a second. So you can click on a single file and hit compress. That's rather easy. So let me do that first. I'm going to hit compress this image file to a couple of different options. .zip is the most compatible with all OSs. This one also has .zip compressed with password protection. It also has a tar, .xz, and a .7z, which is a newer version. However, these must be installed on the destination computer. Okay? And you can see some of the hints. So let's leave this simple by using .zip. You can change the name or you can just leave it. I'm going to hit create. So it creates a zip file. So I can uncompress it or extract it. All right, so I'm going to close that. Now, what if you want to do multiple files? Maybe you're running out of space on your USB stick. You have lots of files. And you want to compress lots of files into one file and then dump that on your USB stick. Well, let's talk about selections. There's a couple of different ways I can do this. I'll use all of these files except for the folders. So if I were to do a single file, you know I can compress the single. But that is going to be all day long if I do every single file, one compress and then drag and drop, drag and drop, drag, and it's going to take a while. Why don't we do one file with all of these guys in them? So there's a couple of ways of selecting files and folders. We can select one, hold down the control key, select another and another, or unselect, select another, other, and this takes forever. You can also drag a box. This is a nice little trick. click and hold and drag a line through those 3 files if that's all you're looking for. But let's say you're looking for these other additional ones to add. Now, if I if I don't have my hand on the control key and I click this, these will be deselected. So if I drag a line through these and hold the control key, I can drag another line through these and also these. And then if I overshot it and I didn't want that T folder, I back it up. Now right click on any of these files and hit compress and give it a name. I'll call that one Z because you can. You can use single letters or using names. All right, the convention usually states that you should use simple names, and I probably agree that we should use simple names. But using single letters you can also do. So as I did here. Now, I'm going to take this file and dump it on my USB stick because I'm running out of space or whatever reason I wanted to compress these things. You can also do this with your regular hard drives. Okay, so I made a copy of ZZip over here. Then I'm going to close this box for a second. So this is this particular thumb drive. Now I can actually uncompress this inside of this thumb drive also. So what happens if I try to uncompress this or take a file out of this and dump it on my desktop? Well, with this distribution, it doesn't allow that. So basically, I'm going to advocate that you create another box if you're wanting to transfer just a single file. Okay. And I don't know what I have. Okay, test 2 is empty. So let me delete this thing and just, you can create a new folder, whether you do it this way or this way. Create a new folder. And I will call that B because I can. So I'm going to open up B and I'm going to take only one file out of all of this mess from my USB stick. Or maybe 2. How about 2 things? I'll take this 18 JPEG and drop it. So all I'm doing is moving this compressed file, one of the compressed files inside of this ZZip into my home folder called B. And then I'll drag another one of these. I'll use this PDF. And that's all I want. That's all I needed. I could extract all of them, but I'm not. So keep that in mind. You could also extract here and extract 2. Or open the Archive Manager. There's multiple ways of doing this. All I'm showing here is something very different from what most people are used to, and that is pulling out only a couple of files out of a whole mess of files that have been compressed. I only pulled out one JPEG and a PDF. And they're normally open now over here on my system because that's all I needed from this. And this will tell you the sizes of those files also inside of your compressed z.zip in this case. I think that's a nice feature for, well, working with compressed files. All right, so multi-select anything. I'm going to multi-select those 2 and hit delete, and they go to my trash can. I could delete these also. Let me start with an empty can. In other words, empty the trash. And do I want to use it with 2 folders? Why not? So I'll leave this in the trash can so you can see this is empty currently. These file manager windows are linked. So basically what I'm going to do is go back to downloads and I'm going to delete this Excalibur PDF, and it's going to end up in my trash can when I hit the delete key. Doesn't have a thumbnail. So I could do an undo here, but what I'm going to do here is click this once and you'll see the restore, and it goes to the original position, in other words where it came from. Or you can right click and hit restore, or sorry, restore from trash, not delete from trash. Delete from trash will be permanent. Okay, so I'm going to use the point and click method, and then it reappears over here. It doesn't matter if you use multiple windows or not. It's still the same thing. So if I delete that here, it's in my trash. And then I'll close that for a second. Click that, restore. It doesn't matter if I'm using two windows or not. It's just I use the two windows to give you that visual experience. So if I were to transfer files into another, let's say you have the luxury of having an internal backup drive. I do. I have a spinning drive here, and I also have some solid state drives, but I'm not going to get into that. So it doesn't matter which screen I put this on. The backup drive is over here, and my home folder is over here. If I switch up, I can put my backup drive here and my home folder over here. Backup drive, home folder, or downloads, or wherever you have this. Make a copy of it. Go the other way if you like. Doesn't matter. Drag and drop. If your intent is to cut and paste or remove this from your drive into a USB stick, then I would suggest using the cut method. Control X. And let me get rid of Excalibur PDF on my USB stick for a second. And I'm going to talk about these keyboard commands briefly again. Under page 3 is Control X for cut and Control V for paste. I'm just going to deal with those two. I know you can't see what I'm doing, but I'm highlighting this. I clicked in here first, highlighted the file. I could do this to a folder also, or even multi-select. I'm going to hit Control X. I know you can't see anything happening. I'm going to click in here. I'm going to hit Control V. I must have done it right because it cut and pasted it. It moved it from my download folder into my backup drive. What if I didn't want to do that, I wanted to make a copy? Well, guess what? You don't need to do anything special. Click, drag, and drop that file right back to the same folder. Now you just made a copy of that going the other way. Very cool feature, yes. Now, that's multiple screens. You can do the same thing with the tab. It's just more confusing to some folks. This is my backup 4 drive. This is my download folder. Backup 4, download folder. Do the same thing. Cut and paste. It's just more confusing to some folks. Okay, so lots of little things you can do with your file manager. Drive to drive, again, you can drop files. When you're dealing with USB sticks, I would recommend that you format them with FAT32. If you are wanting to share them with Microsoft Windows systems and Apple Macs. You can also format them with NTFS. That's actually how this one is formatted. This one is formatted with. This one is extension 4. That's why it's not viewable. Well, actually, the reason it's not viewable here is because I have permissions. I have this one locked up. I need to have the proper permissions to open this. But more importantly, when you are making your partitions, most folks make a single partition for USB sticks. Mine happens to have 2. But you can do this to your hard drives, making multiple partitions, or you can also do that with USB sticks if you use the right tools. But what I'm getting at is when you format your USB stick, I don't care what system you do it on. If you're on your Mac or in your Windows, format that with FAT32. That way you can bring it into Linux, put files on it like JPEGs or documents or PDFs or that kind of thing, and then transport that back and forth and also over to your Mac systems. FAT32 is the most compatible with those 3 OSs. Okay? All right. So backup drives, let me talk about that briefly. If you are wanting to back up your system stuff, may I make the recommendation that you put your backups on a different hard drive than you're currently booted into. You put them on a USB stick or a portable hard drive would be good, or another internal hard drive. You take that external hard drive or USB stick, and another thing, if the files are important to you, I have lots of photos of my kids, for instance, that are important to me, and documents, and I have those in a fire safe. In other words, they're sitting on a USB stick and or portable drive in a fire safe. If you have the luxury of cloud storage, then so be it. But I would still do both. You never know if you lose cloud storage also. They're not impervious to errors. But more importantly, if you are backing up your personal files to a USB stick, don't make the mistake of having it laying around. I have done this before in the past, where you stick the wrong USB stick in there and then you format it and then your backup files are gone. Most of the time, USB sticks are cheap nowadays. It all depends on how big your files are. Just to give you an idea, some of my photos, I think this drive has a large photo directory. My pictures directory on this one is quite large. It's 34 gigabytes. Obviously, that doesn't fit on most USB sticks. But more importantly, if you have a lot of photos, maybe they are important to you, put them on appropriate backup drives. All right, one more recap on this thing. So file manager here again is called Files. And your settings are located here, Preferences. Your keyboard shortcuts, don't forget about them. Don't forget about my nice little trick of holding down the Control key and scrolling up and down to resize these icons on the fly. It comes in handy with your photos. And if you're looking for a quick way to add your wallpaper, stick your pictures, digital pictures or wallpapers you downloaded off the internet into any folder and turn around and right click on it and set as wallpaper. It is that simple. On that note, hopefully you have subscribed to Linux for Seniors. Linux for everyone, I should say. But more importantly, I have some additional videos that the library will be growing over the next weeks, months, and maybe a year, depending on how far I'll go with this project. But my last project, I created over 450 videos. So on that note, I will say, please subscribe to Linux for Seniors, and thank you for watching.